This myth is also difficult to prove or disprove because it really all depends on the character and the situation, and more importantly, the player. In general, I can say that when you're in a combo in Melee, the only thing you can do is DI, while in Brawl, after a hit you can typically DI, air dodge, and or attack at a hit stun. So when on the defensive, you'll probably have a higher APM in Brawl than in Melee, and when on the offense, Melee probably has the higher APM. When recovering in Brawl, multiple air dodges, footstooling, and a slower fall speed allows players to generally do more in the air and still recover. This probably gives the edge to Brawl when recovering as far as APM goes. See how complicated things are getting? How all of these considerations weigh out exactly will require a lot more data. Speaking of data, a group of smashers over at Smashboards.com created this thread for analyzing and posting the APM of different Melee players. Some players have been clocked at over 300 actions per minute. That's pretty crazy. Knowledge, the skill of cognition. The following are the subcategories or facets of knowledge skill. LTM, long-term memory, is our memorized encyclopedic knowledge. STM, short-term memory, is a temporary and smaller memory that can store about 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information actively. Then there's MM, muscle memory, or the learned sequences of actions. Code and decode is how we expand the use of our LTM and STM memories by compressing and decompressing large amounts of data into small amounts. This is also known as chunking. And channels is the ability to process multiple independent information streams without crossing them up. Most smashers that mention knowledge skills have expressed an equality between Brawl and Melee. Both games contain more data than anyone is ever likely to memorize, and this isn't even considering all the emergent data like the metagame or specific player playstyles. This is more of an issue of complexity, so I'll save the long explanation for the next episode. But before I move on, I will say that with a super complex game like Smash, LTM and MM are the facets of knowledge skill that are exercised the most. Basically, until you learn or memorize the different strengths, animations, ranges, timings, sounds, etc. of each character's moves and each stage element, you can't really form a highly effective strategy. Learning to play Smash at a high level involves a great deal of learning all the intricacies of your character and all the other characters in the game. This basically means you have to practice a lot like a musical instrument, or study it like you would a subject at school. Only then can you battle knowing all the rules, so to speak. Like LTM, we use muscle memory so we can execute our moves correctly without taxing our STM or conscious thought. Without muscle memory, the tax of playing at a high technical level, dexterity, would be too great. Adaptation. Not to oversimplify, the basics of adaptation can be expressed easily. Changing when changing is needed. Or if you prefer, changing just for the heck of it. The quicker you change and the smarter the changes you make, the better you are at adapting. I say that adaptation is a core part of every action game, but especially fighting games, considering the triangularity or the interplay between attacking, blocking, and grabbing. Adapting in anticipation to counter an opponent's move is generally referred to as reading the opponent. There are 3 tiers or levels of adaptation that increase in complexity. Tier 1 adaptation involves making adjustments within a single core skill, any one of the decart parts. Tier 2 adaptation involves augmenting the lack of one core skill with another. Tier 3 adaptation involves adjusting to an entire shift in the spectrum. This typically occurs when the game rules change or when the game speed changes. Many have expressed that Brawl has more mind games than Melee because of the lack of technical skill. Others have expressed that because Brawl is slower, there's more mind games. I don't think this is the case at all. The ability for a player to create mind games, or more specifically mix-ups, is not tied directly to game speed. We have to look at other factors like mechanics design and gameplay dynamics to understand how mix-ups are made. Until I cover such topics later, I can't prove or disprove this myth. Reflex, the skill of perception. Most are familiar with the basic reflex test. A light goes off and you must hit a button as quickly as possible in response. There's so much more to reflex skills, and it only gets more interesting from here. The more stimuli someone is required to look out for, and the more responses they have to choose between, the slower our reaction times become. All of this has been scientifically proven. See the links below for more information. So the second facet of reflex skill is a measure of how much slower your reaction times get when the tests become increasingly more complex. Taking a page from Nintendo's Flash Focus, peripheral vision is a measure of how well you can see outside of your hard focus. Dynamic visual acuity, DVA, measures your ability to track moving objects. Momentary vision measures how much you can see in an instant, and eye movement tests your ability to rapidly change focus between different objects. Game speed and pacing are seemingly simple but very complex concepts, and I think they're best addressed from a reflexive point of view. So let's say my average base reflex is 12 frames. This means that I can't react or actively see anything that happens in the game that's faster than 0.2 seconds. Because many attacks and moves in Melee and Brawl become active in under 12 frames, using these moves makes the game speed or pace faster than I can react to. Likewise, in a situation where I have to do something specific if A happens and something else if B happens, my reaction times increase to 21 frames. And if I'm stressed, overloaded with information, or in the middle of doing something else, this number can increase to the point where I'm practically blind. Looking at things this way, it's more accurate to say that the speed and the pace of a match is mostly determined by characters, players, and playstyles. In general, the fast falling speed, L-canceling, wave sliding, and the overall fast movement allows players to push Melee to a faster pace than Brawl, especially in the area between the ground or platform and the height of a short hop. Like I said when discussing APM, it's not that Melee maintains the speed at all times. When recovering or when in certain combos, the speed slows down somewhat, which I think is a good thing, but more on that later. Timing, the skill of time. Static timing involves executing actions to a steady rhythm or to an unchanging rhythmic sequence. Many combos and follow-ups are based on the same action-to-action static timing. Pushing yourself to follow up moves as quickly as possible helps establish patterns of static timing. The timing of individual moves are also mostly static. External timing involves extrapolating the timing according to visual cues. This is the standard kind of timing for an action video game. In other words, you see something coming and you do something about it before it gets you. Internal timing involves executing actions based on a mental timer, i.e., no visual, auditory, or physical cues. Acceleration, deceleration involves speeding up or slowing down the timing of actions or sequences of actions. This happens organically as you close in the distance between yourself and a spamming opponent. Complex timings involve executing syncopated, jazzy, irregular, and/or multi-layered timings. And tracks, like mental channels, measures your ability to keep multiple timings and timers straight in your head. Overall, Brawl and Melee feature a wide variety of timings for attacks and other moves. Because both games run in 60 frames per second, we can use frames as an equivalent measure of time. Both games have moves that hit in one frame all the way up to 120 plus frames. As far as variety goes, Brawl has the edge on Melee. Moves like Diddy's Bananas, Snake's Up Smash, C4 Grenades, Nikita Down Smash, Pit's infinitely looping arrows and Wings of Icarus, Rob's Gyro, Robo Beam, Charge, and the Robo Burner, Wario Waft, Charge, and the Bike add more lengthier timers to combat, which expands the upper range of Brawl's timing skill ceiling. Now this is just a basic overview of the D-card system. My brother and I have actually designed 4 games that test your raw or core abilities. I highly encourage you to download them, get your highest scores, and send me your results. Next up, we're tackling the epic, age-old debate of complexity versus depth. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and hang tight in the meantime.